हेलो स्टूडेंट्स। तो आज हम लोग पढ़ेंगे आपकी पार्ट 2 फिजिक्स में चैप्टर नंबर 9 और चैप्टर नंबर 9 का नेम ऑफ द चैप्टर इज मैकेनिकल प्रॉपर्टीज ऑफ सॉलिड्स। So here in this chapter, which is known as mechanical properties of solids. Now you might be aware of the fact that there are 5 states of the matter. One is solid, second is liquid, third is gaseous, fourth is Bose-Einstein condensate, and fifth is plasma. है ना? तो ये 5 में से हम लोग solids की अगर बात करें, if we talk of only solids, so solids can broadly be classified into crystalline solid and non-crystalline solid, and you can also semi-crystalline solid, semi-crystalline solids. So crystalline solids इसके भी आप जो है फर्दर क्लासिफिकेशन आप जा सकते हो कि जिसके अंदर सॉलिड के अंदर उसके माइक्रोस्ट्रक्चर है ना। तो इन द माइक्रोस्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द सॉलिड यू विल सी क्रिस्टलाइन स्ट्रक्चर। हियर इन द माइक्रोस्ट्रक्चर you won't see crystalline structure, and here also you won't see crystalline structure, but instead you will see non-crystalline structure, and here you will see crystalline structure. Okay, so first part of this can be written here, or the first classification can be molecular solids. Here constituent particles are molecular solids. Here constituent particles are solids. Then molecules, and then there are ionic solids. Then the third classification is done on this basis is covalent solids and metallic solids. So here covalent solids and fourth one is metallic solid. Here the constituent particles are molecules. Here the constituent particles are atoms. Here covalent bond will be there between the constituent particles, and in metals, okay, free electrons will be there. So for example, molecular solid which are crystalline in nature, we can give many examples like molecular solids. इसके अंदर जो है ना molecules होते हैं, atom नहीं होते ना, इसके अंदर there are molecules, and between the molecules you will find interatomic forces between these two. So molecular solids can easily be termed as, for example, polyvinyl chloride, PVC. Polyvinyl chloride are the example of crystalline solids. Here ions are constituent particles. For example, we can say NaCl. Here sodium plus and Cl minus ions will be the constituent particles. Here covalent solids are there. So covalent solids, we can say that covalent bond exists between the solids. So here many carbohydrates you will find that these type of solids are there. And what do you mean by metallic solids? So here metal ions, here metal atoms will be the constituent particles, and non-crystalline solids example is ice. Okay, and semi-crystalline you will see that many carbohydrates, in some of the part you will find the crystalline, and some of the part you will see amorphous material will be there. Amorphous means non-crystalline material will be there. So this type of you can say that solids can be classified like this also. So solids are crystalline, non-crystalline and semi-crystalline. Here the crystalline solids can be further be classified into molecular solids, ionic solids, covalent solids and metallic solids. And non-crystalline solids are ice, semi-crystalline solids are, in some part you will find in some part you will find that there is a crystalline structure, and in other part you will not be able to find the crystalline part. Now further study will give us, that is, we will have to stress upon mechanical properties, है ना. तो mechanical properties जो है it will be stressed upon in this chapter, and in the first mechanical property of the solid is elasticity. First is the elasticity. So elasticity is nothing but it is an inherent property. It is an inherent property of the solid to regain its original structure, its original configuration or structure is known as elasticity. Now elasticity you might have observed that in case of rubber band, if you stretch the rubber band like this, so what will happen? It will be stretched, and if you release it, it will regain its position. So this property is known as elasticity. So here, suppose this is the rubber band. This is the rubber band, and if you stretch it, so here you will be find the stretched rubber band, and after stretched rubber band, if you release it, then it will be in its initial configuration. So this regaining of the original configuration is because of the elasticity. Now why elasticity exists? Okay. So why there is elasticity present in all the material, not only in the rubber band, but elasticity is present in metals, or in other words, in all solids. In all solids, whether it is rubber band or whether it is you can say metals, or whether it is any other type of. So this type of property exists in all the structure of the solid. Okay. Now why elasticity exists? So elasticity is because of the intermolecular forces. Elasticity is there because of the intermolecular forces. Now what do you mean by intermolecular forces? So suppose intermolecular forces are like this. That suppose this is your, for example, this is your object or substance. Here what actually happens, here the constituent particles will be there. This constituent particle may be either atoms, maybe either molecule, or maybe ion, whatever it may be. So these constituent particles will be there. Any substance is made up of constituent particles, and these constituent particles may be, we can say atoms, maybe we can say molecules, maybe we can say atoms, molecules, and other thing we can say that it may be ions or any other. So what happens, there is a presence of intermolecular forces between these constituent particles. And what are intermolecular forces? देखिए, suppose these two constituent particles are there. So there exists, what exists? There must be an existence of gravitational force between these two. So gravitational force is there. Then the second, which is attractive in nature. Then the nucleus of this solid or this particle number 1 will exert an electric force on the second electron of the second particle. So there exists an electric force. And the third one, that is van der Waals weak forces. So here van der Waals weak forces. So what happens? Why there is elasticity? So elasticity is there because of the intermolecular forces, and mainly intermolecular forces are there because of the gravitational force, because of the electric force, and because of the van der Waals weak forces. So this elasticity is nothing but it is an inherent property of the solid to regain its original configuration, and this elasticity is present in all the solids. Okay. Now I have given you the example of rubber. If you stretch the rubber, then it will change its shape, or it will change its configuration, and after you remove the applied force, what will happen? The rubber will regain its original position. Now why there is elasticity, or why there is elasticity is there in any solid? So elasticity is there because of the intermolecular forces, and these intermolecular forces will be gravitational force, electric force, and van der Waals force, and these constituent particles, that is constituent particles like atoms, molecule, and ions, they experience intermolecular forces among them. So write down this much, write it down this much, then we will study about the elasticity. So elasticity, opposite of the elasticity is plasticity. Okay, so here plasticity will be there. So plasticity is nothing but it is opposite property. It is opposite property of. It is the opposite property of elasticity. And how it is defined? So it is the property. It is the property of the material by which it does not regain its original position. It is the property of the solids by virtue of which it does not regain its original configuration. Okay, so it is the property of the solids by virtue of which it does not regain its original configuration. It is known as plasticity. So plasticity is nothing but, suppose this is the material or this is mud. Okay, now if you press this mud, or if you just change the shape of the mud, then what actually will happen? It will change its shape, but it will never regain its original shape. So this is known as plasticity of the material. See, it is exactly opposite of the elasticity. So it is the property of the solid by virtue of which it does not regain its original configuration is known as plasticity. Now the third one, or the next property. First we have seen the mechanical solid property of mechanical property of the solid. The first property is elasticity. Then we can say the second property is plasticity, and the third one which we are going to discuss is known as stress. Okay, the third property is known as stress. This stress is denoted by sigma. What is this? This is nothing but sigma. Okay, so stress is sigma. Now how will you define a stress? Suppose this is your object. Okay, now the object is fixed at this particular point. Now if you apply the force in this direction, that is, you have applied the force in this direction, the effect of applied force will be there on the entire object. And if you take any cross section like this, okay, so what actually will happen? This constituent particle will be under the influence of this applied force, and what will happen? This constituent particle will also try to move in this direction. But here another layer is there. So these intermolecular forces, this will oppose this type of force. So this force is known as, this force is known as restoring force. What is this force is known as? This is known as restoring force. What actually happens? You have applied the force in this direction. So here you have applied the force in this direction. If you take any arbitrary cross section, then all the constituent particle along this cross section will be under the influence of this force. So if it is under the influence of this force, then what actually will happen? Here these particles will be there, and all these particles will be experiencing the interatomic forces. See, this is interatomic forces, and because of these interatomic forces, the net force which is in this direction, and that force is known as restoring force. Now the stress is defined here as, so stress is sigma. Sigma is defined here as restoring force. Sigma is defined here as restoring force upon cross sectional area. Okay, so here restoring force will be there. If you take restoring force divided by area, that is sigma is equal to F upon A. So F is the restoring force and A is the cross sectional area. This is known as restoring force, or it is known as sigma. So sigma is equal to F by A. Somebody may say that pressure is also defined here as F by A. Pressure is also defined here as F by A. Yes, pressure is also defined here as F by A. But in pressure, this F is taken here as applied force. That is, pressure is the applied force divided by cross-sectional area, and the stress is restoring force divided by cross-sectional area. So F is equal to, we can say sigma is equal to F by A. SI unit of this stress can be written here as SI stress. SI unit of this stress can be Newton per meter square, or we can say Pascal. Newton per meter square or Pascal is the SI unit. So SI unit of sigma will be equal to, we can say Newton meter square, or we can say Pascal. This is how we generally define a stress. So what do you mean by stress? It is nothing but restoring force per unit area. Somebody may ask you to define a stress. So stress is defined here as restoring force. Restoring force per unit area. Per unit area. And the dimensional formula for the stress is same as that of the dimensional formula is same as that of the, we can say, pressure. So here dimensional formula is equal to m1 l raised to -1 and d raised to -2. So what we define here, we have defined a stress. It is nothing but restoring force per unit area, and here applied force upon cross sectional area will be, we can say, F restoring. So F restoring upon area will be equal to, we can say, F by A. So this is how we define, we can say, stress. Okay, so somebody may ask you, is there a classification of stress? Yes, there is a classification of stress, and this classification can be done like this. That how will you define stress? So stress is, we can say here that stress is of tensile in nature. Stress can be compressive in nature, and shear stress is also there, and volumetric strain, volumetric stress will also be there. Okay, now how will you define a tensile stress? Suppose you have got a object here, and suppose this part is fixed, and suppose if you force this object in this direction, so what will happen? There will be a stress developed, and if you apply tensile force, then the stress developed inside the material is known as tensile stress. So tensile stress is what? If applied force is tensile in nature. If applied force is tensile in nature, then if applied force is tensile in nature, then applied, then the stress developed, then the stress developed inside the material is known as tensile stress, is known as tensile stress. So this is how we define a tensile stress. And how do we define a compressive stress? So if an applied force is compressive in nature, if the applied force is compressive in nature, that means यहाँ पर आपने जो है, suppose the body is fixed here and you apply the force in this direction, and if you apply the force in this direction, so what actually will happen? The stress will, or the slowing force will be exactly into the opposite direction of that of the applied. So if any applied force is, or if an applied force is compressive in nature, then the stress developed is equal to, we can say, compressive stress. Now tensile and compressive, these two stress collectively known as longitudinal stress. So tensile and compressive both are known as longitudinal stress. So here we can say if an applied force is tensile in nature, then the stress developed inside a material is known as tensile. If the applied force is compressive in nature, then the applied force is compressive in nature. Now we can say shear stress. Suppose you have got a block here. Suppose this is your block. Okay. Now the block is fixed at this particular point. Suppose you have got a block. Okay. Now if you apply the force on the edge, so force is applied on the edge, okay, on the edge of the block. So ultimately what will happen? This block will yield to this particular shape, or this block will yield to this particular shape. So this is known as shear stress. So shear stress is F applied by cross-sectional area. Which cross-sectional area? This one. जो आपकी तरफ आया, that is not, that we should not take. The bottom area should not be taken. This side area should not be taken. This side area should not be taken, and the back side it should not be taken. But here you will get this force, that is here applied force is in this direction. So this area will be taken into account. So shear stress is also defined here as sigma into A. You must mention that whether this stress is shear or whether this stress is tensile or compressive. Now again I repeat, tensile and compressive stress collectively known as longitudinal stress. Now volume stress. Suppose what happens? Suppose you have got a water pot here, and suppose if you submerge or if you immerse a bowl, or we can say balloon, inside this water. So what will happen? There will be a force, applied force from all the directions, and the resistive force will also be on this direction. Now if you consider this force into an account, this will be giving you volumetric strain, volumetric stress. But this volumetric stress is not so important to us, but we are only dealing with, we can say here that as I can see from the mobile itself, that here we can say tensile, compressive and shear stress will be there. Okay, so you make a note of it. Okay, then we will move to the next topic, which is known as strain. Okay, but before that, let me explain you, before moving to the next topic of strain, let me clarify like this, that here in stress, suppose the applied force in this direction, so the resistive force will be in this direction. Now it is okay. So sigma is equal to F upon A. Okay. But what will happen if you apply the force in this direction? Okay. If you apply the force in this direction, F applied, which is making an angle theta, like this. So here we can say F applied divided by this. So this is known as F cos theta. This component will be equal to F cos theta and this component will be equal to F sin theta. Now this vertical component will not help us yielding this object. So only the responsible component which produces the applied force in this direction is F cos theta only. Okay. And similarly, restoring force will be produced in the opposite direction. So here in this case, if you apply force in this direction, then if the two components are there, then you must take a component perpendicular to the cross-sectional area. So here sigma will be equal to, we can say, F cos theta upon A. F cos theta upon A. Sometimes what will happen, they may not give you like this. Sometimes they will give you an angle like this. Okay. So this will be equal to, we can say, F cos theta. And here if you can see this will be equal to F sin theta. So in this case, when the angle is given with the vertical and with not horizontal, then you will have to change this equation like this. That is F is equal to F sin theta upon, we can say, A. So this is how you can easily get the value of sigma. What I am telling you, that here the applied force is having the same magnitude as restoring force. Okay. So applied force and restoring force both are same in magnitude. Sometimes what will happen? Sometimes they will give you like this. That is, this is the applied force which is in this direction. But they may ask you to find out the stress on this one. Okay. So this angle will be equal to, we can say, theta. This angle will be equal to theta. So this is A1 and this is A2. Now if you take cos theta, so cos theta is equal to A2 by A1. What is this? This is A2. And what is this? This is A1. So A2 by A1 will be there. So what actually happens, sigma is equal to, we can say here, that is, it is F upon A2. Okay. These two must be perpendicular to each other. These two must be perpendicular to each other. So here we can say sigma is equal to F upon A2. So in place of A2, you may write A cos theta here. So here A1 cos theta. So this is also how you can easily find out the stress on the given material. So we can say that stress is the force divided by cross-sectional area, and this cross-sectional area must be perpendicular to the applied force. Okay, so this you must remember this. Okay, now if you take area vector of this applied cross-sectional area, this will be in the same direction as that of the applied force. So area vector and this force will be, that is, this is what? This is area vector and this is area vector. Area vector and force will be in the same direction. Now let us try to move on the next topic of strain. Okay. So next topic of, you can say, strain. So again I told you that we can say that strain is nothing but it is the ratio of deformed direction. It is the ratio of deformed, we can say, it is the ratio of deformed, what can we say here? Deformed length and breadth, they are known as dimension. Yes, deformed dimension to the original dimension. Okay, so it is the ratio of deformed dimension to the original dimension. So sigma is known as epsilon. Suppose if I take this object here, original length of the object is like L. Now if you apply the force in this direction, so what will happen? The length will increase slightly, not this much, but this will be the increased length and this will be the original length. Now the ratio of these two, that is delta L divided by L, is known as epsilon. So this delta L, which is deformed dimension divided by original dimension, is known as strain. Now strain, SI unit of the strain. So SI unit of the strain. Epsilon is equal to delta L by L. So this is meter by meter, because delta length, change in length will be equal to meter and original length will also be measured in terms of meter. So the SI unit of the strain is not there. So SI unit is not there for the strain. Okay. And the dimensional formula, if you consider the dimensional formula, is M0, N0 and T0. Okay. Now we are not going to always elongate or deform in the same direction as that of the force. So suppose we can say here that suppose the force is compressive in nature. This is the original length, and after deformation the length has become this much. So this is L, and this is, how can we can say, this is delta L and this is L. So if you apply the compressive force, then also delta L by L, that is this ratio delta L by L, will give you the compressive strain. Okay, so it is the ratio of the deformed dimension to the original dimension. This is how we can easily find out the value of the strain. Okay, and stress, as I told you, that stress is compressive or tensile or shear in nature. Similarly, this strain is also classified into 4 categories. That is, one is, we can say this tensile strain. Then the second one is compressive strain. As you might be aware of the fact that these two are collectively known as longitudinal strain. The third one is shear strain, and the fourth one is we can say volume strain or hydraulic strain. Volume strain, or it is also known as hydraulic strain. Now in case of tensile strain, what actually happens? Suppose if you apply the force in this direction, and after application of the force, suppose the length has increased to this much value, that's delta L is the length, and here it is, we can say L. So we can say epsilon is equal to delta L by L. Okay, so this is delta L by L is known as tensile strain. So what happens if you apply the force in this direction? So what actually will happen? Because of this force, the object is going to be elongated by the value of delta L, and if you take delta L by L, this is going to be your tensile strain. Similarly, in case of compression or in case of compressive stress, if you apply the force in this direction, so what actually will happen? Then this will be like this, that after compression, suppose the length has become this much. So this is L, and this is going to be, we can say, delta L. So epsilon is equal to, again it is delta L by L. So this is compressive strain. You can see we are going to take the change. That is, epsilon can also be written like this. That is change in dimension. Now this change in dimension must be taken into an account, divided by original length. Divided by original length. So this epsilon, that is epsilon is equal to change in dimension upon original dimension या length. आप dimensions को length भी कह सकते हो. So it is change in length divided by original length. Now this is how we define a compressive strain. Now in case of shear strain, now what actually happens? Suppose this is your block. Okay. Now if you apply the force in this direction, so what actually will happen? Now the block was like this. The block was like this, and the block has become like this. The block has become like this. So what actually happens here? This is your length, and here it is, we can say, delta N. Okay. Now delta N upon L, that is delta N upon L, will be giving you the shear strain. Now what happened? You know, this was its original length here. Original length here. Here also there will be an original length, or this may be whatever it may be. It may be this block may be of rectangular in the form. So after deformation, the block has become like this. After deformation, so this much is the change in one of its dimension divided by this dimension. This is known as delta N. Now somebody may say that can you think or can you prove in terms of theta? Suppose if you know this value of theta, or suppose if you want to find out this value of theta, so we can say tan theta can also be written here as delta N upon L. Why? Because if you see this small triangle, this, there is an application of, or then you can apply the trigonometry in small this triangle. So tan theta is equal to delta L. So epsilon can also be written here as tan theta. Okay. So this is how we can define a shear strain. Okay. So write down this much. Then we will discuss about the volume strain. Pause the video and we will discuss the volume strain. Okay. Pause the video and take your note. Then we will discuss about the volume strain. So suppose somebody may ask that what is volume strain? So you may take like this, that suppose you have got original shape of the balloon like this, and if you immerse this ball in this water tank, so what will happen? Its original volume was like this, and its initial volume was like this, Vi, and this will be the final volume, Vf. So delta V is equal to Vf minus V. So here volume strain is defined here. Volume strain is defined here as delta V by V. So it is delta V by V. So delta V is equal to Vf minus Vi upon V. So delta V is volume strain. So delta V by V is known as, we can say, volume strain. So volume strain is known as delta V by V. Okay. So this is how we define here. Delta V is what? It is change in volume divided by, we can say, original volume. Divided by, we can say, original volume. So this is how we generally define the strain. So how many types of stresses are there? 4 types. And how many types of strain are there? There are also of 4 types. Okay. So now the next topic is, we can say, Hooke's law. Okay. The next topic which we are going to discuss is Hooke's law. Now, Hooke's law. You might have learned Hooke's law in chapter number 5. According to that law, restoring force is directly proportional to minus x. What is this minus x? Minus x is displacement of the spring. Okay. So minus sign indicate that the restoring force and the displacement is opposite in nature, or in other words, you must have written the Hooke's law like this. F is equal to, we can say, minus kx, where k is spring constant. You might have written like this. So this Hooke's law is also there in case of the spring. And that is, restoring force developed in the spring is directly proportional to the displacement of the spring, which is in opposite direction to each other. Now Hooke's law for material, or for material within elastic limit, or we can say Hooke's law is only valid for elastic limit of the material. It says that, we can say, that strain, or we can say stress, developed inside the material is directly proportional to the strain. That means stress developed inside a material is directly proportional to the strain. This stress may be longitudinal, this stress may be shear. So sigma is directly proportional to epsilon. So sigma is what? It is nothing but this stress is directly proportional to, we can say, strain. So sigma is equal to K into epsilon. So this is how we can generally define Hooke's law. So sigma is directly proportional to, we can say, epsilon. So stress developed inside the material is directly proportional to the strain. So sigma is directly proportional to epsilon. So stress is directly proportional to strain. So sigma is equal to, we can say, K times epsilon. So this is how we generally define Hooke's law. Now based on Hooke's law, we will define Young modulus, we will define bulk modulus, and we will define shear modulus, but we will keep it in the next lecture. Okay, beta? So we'll keep up till here, and in the next lecture we will be defining the stress-strain relationship between the two objects.